Podcast. Presented by XFL2K.com. With your host, Tron Hawkins.
Welcome, this is the XFL Podcast. I'm your host, Tron Hawkins. Week 2 is finally here. We got 4 fantastic matchups. This week we're going to separate the pretenders from the contenders. All the teams that won last week, the 1-0 teams, 2 1-0 teams play each other in one game, 2 1-0 teams play each other in another game, and then 2 0-1 teams play each other, and 2 other 0-1 teams play each other. So some teams are going to be 0-2 already, and looking up at the 2-0 teams. So it's gonna get ugly pretty quick here. But we're locked in for week 2. We're gonna go game by game and break it down real quick and let you know what I think about each matchup and who I think is gonna win. It's week 2. Let's get it going with my game of the week. That is the St. Louis Battlehawks at the Houston Roughnecks. They play this Sunday, February 15th at 6 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. I wish it was on Fox because this is going to be a fantastic game, but I get why it's on Fox Sports 1 because of the Daytona 500. Betting lines on DraftKings Sportsbook has the Houston Roughnecks as an 8-point favorite, and that is as of right now, February 13th, so a couple days before the game. The over-under is 50.5 points. Team stats, Houston outgained them in passing yards, 265 to 183 last week, but St. Louis had almost 200 yards rushing. They lead the XFL in rushing, where Houston only had 50, but they didn't have to. They're both even on yards per play at 5.6 per play and 5.3 per play. Houston, however, won by scoring just 15 points, and Roughnecks won with the most points in the league with 37 last week. The most interesting to me is the defense. Both teams one team had 5 sacks, the other one had 4. Houston had 5, St. Louis had 4. Quarterback hits, however, Houston hit LA's quarterback 16 times last week. They're not going to do this against. They ain't going to do that this week against Jordan Ta'amu because Jordan Ta'amu is too elusive. I don't see him getting hit 16 times, probably all season, much less in this game. It's going to be an interesting matchup. That's why it's the game of the week. You got St. Louis's fantastic defense against Houston's explosive offense, the fireworks show. However, Houston actually had 3 takeaways. Their defense was no slouch last week, but how much of that is LA being bad? St. Louis might be a better team than LA was. We didn't think that at the beginning of the year, but here we are, 1 week and everything's done change. Jordan Ta'amu had 209 yards passing and a touchdown, while P.J. Walker had 272 yards and a touchdown. Matt Jones ran for 85 yards, and Butler ran for 30, but Butler had 2 touchdowns. Receivers, Pearsonell might be my favorite player in this game, fantasy-wise. I think he could torch Houston's defense a little bit, and you have Cam Phillips, another guy I'm high on. He had 4 for 67 and a touchdown, while Pearsonell had 4 for 64 with no touchdowns. Houston's offense, though, is too good. According to Pro Football Focus Week 1 report card, these 2 teams are the best, the top 2 offensive and defensive teams last week. We got East versus West messed up. It said the Battlehawks prevailed 15-9 in a defensive slugfest Week 1, holding Dallas without a touchdown, and Dallas went 1 for 10 on third downs. However, if they had Landry Jones, it'd be a totally different situation, I think. Jordan Ta'amu is a lot better than Nelson was. He had 209 yards passing and a touchdown, along with another 77 yards on the ground. Matt Jones went for 85 yards as the team got it out 191 yards of rushing offense. P.J. Walker, the XFL's first star of the week, threw for 4 touchdowns and was responsible for nearly 300 yards of offense in a 37-17 rout. Walker spread the wealth with 4 teammates finding the end zone and 4 catching at least 4 balls. Houston's defense registered 5 sacks and allowed only 4 yards per play. Both stats are the best in the league and forced 3 turnovers. So you got these 2 teams, totally different teams. You got this one high-powered offense who also has a good defense. And right now you have this offense that wants to run the ball and play defense, which I've been saying all along about St. Louis. I think they're going to run the ball and play good defense. Give me Houston in this game. I think the offense is too powerful. Houston might be the first team to ever host a championship game because it ain't never happened in the Super Bowl. We could have an XFL championship game, which will be in Houston. I love this offense a little bit better. St. Louis has a great defense. I think St. Louis could be a sneaky team to come out of the East in the championship game, even though DC and New York's there. But I just think Houston's too much for him. I picked against Houston last week because I thought Josh Johnson was playing. That was my mistake. I could have went undefeated in my picks if I'd have just thought about it. P.J. Walker is going to be the guy that goes in the NFL and maybe gets a starting job, kind of like Tommy Maddox did. He's going to be the MVP of this league so far. I mean, he's all throwing another 4 touchdowns this week. Give me Houston. I think it's going to be close for the first few quarters, but Houston will run away with it around the fourth quarter. Give me Houston to win this game. The next game I want to talk about is most everybody else's game of the week is New York Guardians at the DC Defenders. DC beat Seattle 31-19 as the Guardians beat the Vipers 23-3 and was a just kind of one-sided affair. DC had a harder time with Seattle, I think, than most people thought they would. New York, though, I mean, even though they won 23-3, a lot of that was their defense. So I don't know how much the Guardians' defense is good based on how the Vipers did or how bad they did and how much of it's good because they just have a good defense. We're going to find out, though. This DC Defenders team is not Tampa Bay Vipers, let's put it that way. So the game is going to be this Saturday at 2 o'clock. It's the first game of the weekend at Audi Field on ABC. On DraftKings Sportbook, it is DC as a 6.5 point favorite. The over-under actually is 47.5. Team stats. DC had 227 yards passing to 182 for New York last week. Rushing 68 to 40 DC. Yards per play 4.5 to 5 to DC. Points scored 31 to 23. The defense, however, 5 sacks for New York, 1 for DC. 2 picks apiece, 2 fumble recoveries apiece, 2 defensive touchdowns for DC, and 1 defensive touchdown for New York. So it's going to be a defensive battle, I think. I think a lot of people think this will be the high scoring because you got Cordell Jones, DC's defense offense, but I don't think so. I think this is 2 of the best defenses not only in the East but in the XFL. I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I think the over-under is kind of right on this game. Neither team turned over the ball last week, so that's interesting. But both teams had 3 takeaways. The turnover differential was 1 for DC, 3 for New York. So, I mean, that's interesting. Quarterback-wise, Matt McGloin only threw for 182 yards and a touchdown and rushed for 1. I mean, that's all he had to do with that defense. Cordell Jones, however, had 2 passing touchdowns, 3 for 235 yards. Darius Victor led the Guardians in rushing with 32 yards. Presley had 31. Neither of them had a touchdown. The lead receiver for New York last week was Mikael McKay, 458, but Kobe Pearson's the one that scored a touchdown. Eli Rogers led the DC last week in catches. It was 6 for 73, and Rashard Loss had 2 catches for 52 yards and a touchdown. The Guardians walloped Tampa Bay, it said 23-3 in their opener, tying the Houston Roughnecks for the largest margin of victory in Week 1. Matt McGloin accounted for 2 touchdowns, and the defense got an act on cornerback Jamar Summers' scoop and score. What a play that was. New York lost the yardage and time possession battles, but more than made up for it with a 3-0 turnover advantage. The Guardians need to do better than 2.8 rush yards, 2.8 per rush yards. However, with first place in the East on the line. So what they're saying is that the defense kind of carried the team a little bit. The defense carried the team. Matt McGloin wasn't anything special. He was a game manager like we kind of thought he would be. I've been talking about that since the teams kind of got together, that I think that New York is going to have a good defense and kind of be a game manager. Matt McGloin didn't make any mistakes, where Aaron Murray made 2 or 3, and the Vipers in general made 2 or 3, and that's why they won the game. Do what you need to do. Don't turn over the ball. Let the defense get the ball for you. Score. Defenders, Cordell Jones graded out as the best at his position in Week 1, passing for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Defenders 31-19 win over Seattle. Eli Rogers proved unguardable, catching 6 balls and 6 targets, while Rashard Ross added 52 yards in the score. DC's defense allowed 4.8 yards per play and helped post a 3-0 advantage in turnovers, including 2 pick sixes. Both teams had good defense. Like I said, these are 2 of the top defenses in the league. Give me the better quarterback. I talked about that last week. Give me the better quarterback in these situations. Cordell Jones, though, is prone to make mistakes, so that's where I think it could get interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if New York won. Their defense could be legit, but they got to show me against top-tier talent. And no offense to Tampa Bay, they are not a top-tier talent team. Give me DC, give me Presley, give me Ross, give me Eli Rogers, give me that secondary. They just have too many weapons, kind of like how I felt about New York in St. Louis. St. Louis got good defense, but Houston got too many weapons. You can't have top-tier talent every position offense and not have it on defense. So I feel like there's not enough coverage available to cover all the weapons on DC for New York. Give me DC, but it's going to be close. Unlike the Houston game, where I said Houston's going to pull away with it, I think DC and New York, I think it's going to be a close game. It might come down to whoever has the ball last. But give me DC to this. Next game is, I think, one of the most interesting ones of the weekend, believe it or not, is Tampa Bay at Seattle. So this is the 0-1 teams playing each other. They play each other at 5 o'clock this Saturday, February 15th on Fox at CenturyLink Field. 30,000 people are going to be there. That's the coolest thing about about this. I cannot wait to see CenturyLink Rocket for this game. DraftKings Sportsbook, as of this morning, had Tampa Bay as a 3-point favorite. You think they would have learned. They had Tampa Bay as, I think, as a 2.5-point favorite last week, and New York just blew them off the map. So that's insane. I don't know why they have such a love for Tampa Bay. Team stats: Tampa Bay had the most yards in the league last week, but 3 points scored. That kind of tells you what turnovers do to you. Pass offense: Tampa Bay had 244, whereas Seattle had 213. Rushing yards: 150 for Tampa Bay to just 97 for Seattle. Yards per play: 5.5 to 4.8. Points scored: Seattle actually outscored them 19-3. Sacks: Seattle had 1. Tampa had no interceptions or anything. Seattle had no interceptions or anything. They allowed 31 points and 23 points, respectively. Here's where it gets interesting. Tampa Bay has a quarterback problem. Aaron Murray had no touchdown, 231 yards, had a couple of turnovers. Brandon Silvers, however, actually looked pretty good. He had 217 yards and 3 touchdowns. The running backs, Davian Smith looked pretty good, 79 yards rushing, and Kenneth Farrow had 41 yards rushing for Seattle. The receivers is the best part of both these teams. You had Daniel Williams, six catches for 123 yards, which leads the league. Austin Pro had 5 catches for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's already a star for that Seattle team. It says not much went right for the Vipers on a 23-3 Week 1 loss at the New York Guardians. Quarterback Aaron Murray threw 2 picks and missed much of the second half with an injured foot, leaving his status for Saturday uncertain. Quentin Flowers put a spark in the second half, mostly on the ground, and has taken first-team reps this week. Dan Williams, 123 yards, and Davion Smith, 79 yards rushing, are first and second, respectively, in those categories. For the Dragons have reason for optimism going into the home opener despite losing at the DC Defenders. Seattle outgained the Defenders in total yardage, 310 to 295, and tallied more first downs, 19-13. Seattle actually looked really good against DC. I thought DC would blow them out of the water. I said it was going to be my biggest blowout of the week, and they actually hung tough until the fourth quarter. The Dragons are a sneaky team. I don't think they're going to go playoffs or anything. They're going to spoil some of these people's chances that are trying to get in the playoffs. Plus, legendary CFL wide receiver S.J. Green joined the team this week, giving Brandon Silvers another weapon. Silvers' ankle missed practice earlier this week, but should start. Jim Zorn's squad has plenty to clean up from Week 1, namely 2 interceptions, including 1 for a touchdown, a fumble, a blocked punt, also scooped up for a TD, and 68 penalty yards. A crowd around 30,000 is expected at CenturyLink. But we don't know if Brandon Silvers is really going to start, though. That is the kind of problem in this whole thing. It's a possibility that 2 South Florida guys, South Florida, B.J. Daniels versus Quentin Flowers, could play against each other. If that's the case, I have no clue who they'll pick. However, I do think Aaron Murray's going to be out. Give me Seattle for this one reason. 30,000 people's going to be there. Give me the home field of 30,000 screaming people. I don't like Tampa's offense, even with Clinton Flowers. These wide receivers did good last week because Aaron Murray was the quarterback chunking the ball down the field. Clinton Flowers has not got that kind of arm strength. He's more of a runner. So give me Seattle with 30,000 people screaming, and I think they just maybe not obliterate, but they beat Tampa by a couple of touchdowns. Actually, on the XFL Play XFL app, I have Seattle winning 20-10. I think it's going to be that kind of game. I don't think it's going to be high scoring or anything, but give me the team with home field advantage. 30,000 people is insane. Who thought we'd see 30,000 people at a XFL game? I know I didn't, I think this actually has a sneaky chance of being a good game. All 4 of these games is going to be excellent, but give me Seattle with the home field advantage and possibly their starting quarterback over Tampa Bay. So the last game to get to is the Dallas Renegades at the Los Angeles Wildcats. Both teams are 0-1. Dallas shockingly loses to St. Louis 15-9. They didn't score a touchdown. LA started out hot against Houston and just gets obliterated. LA got beat so bad that they fired Pepper Johnson, we talked about last episode. So Winston Mossy got 4 jobs now. He's like the head coach, the GM, the defensive coordinator, and like the linebackers coach. So he's got a lot on his plate. Josh Johnson supposedly is practicing, and they said he should start Sunday. I'm not so sure about it because it's not been even pointing upward any this week, and all of a sudden on Thursday, like, oh, he's going to practice. Bet lines has Dallas at -4. I think it should be higher than that. And the over-under is 48.5. Again, I think it should be higher. They're getting Landry Jones back. It was announced today that Landry Jones is the starting quarterback for this team this Sunday. That automatically, I think, is worth at least a touchdown, if I'm being honest. Team stats, passing yards, LA actually outdid Dallas, but Nelson dinked and dunked down the field, so he didn't really have a chance to get a whole lot of passing yards. LA had 265 with Chad Kenoff. Rushing yards, Dallas 58-50. Neither one of them got anything going on the ground. Yards game per play is actually LA 5.6 to 4.5, but points scored is also LA 17-9. Dallas actually registered 2 sacks to 1 at LA. LA actually had a pick. Dallas had a fumble recovery. Dallas' defense wasn't bad against St. Louis, but St. Louis is not a high-powered offense either. They only gave up 15 points, but that was enough to win 15-9. So if Dallas' offense would have been at least competent, they'd have beat St. Louis. Now it's competent. They have Landry Jones. 2 quarterback hits apiece. Both of them had 1 takeaway. Also, both of them had 1 turnover, so it kind of canceled out. Quarterback stats, it's not going to matter for this week. Running back stats, however. Lance Dunbar actually led the Dallas in rushing with 27 yards. He also caught some out of the backfield. Elijah Hood had 43 yards rushing for LA. Receivers, you had Flynn Nagel and Donald Parham leading for Dallas. And then Nelson Spruce, what a beast he was, 11 catches, 103 yards. And then Jordan Smallwood, 3 for 28 and a touchdown. Nagel actually had a pretty good game, 6 for 43 on the dink and dunk. He should be better with Landry Jones there. Nintendo update. The Renegades are getting their starting quarterback back, Landry Jones, which is good news after middling offense showing in week 1. Philip Nelson, 33 for 42 for 209 yards, wasn't asked to do much in falling 15-9 to St. Louis. Pop Street said 3 field goals will not get done. Jones has been out with a knee injury since early training camp, was active last week, but he was active last week, but they didn't want to try to get him back in the game. And Dallas needs his big on the test defenses downfield, which Nelson did not do. Starting quarterback Josh Johnson is expected to miss another game, and then backup Charles Kenoff or Jalen McClendon will probably take first-team snaps again. Kenoff struggled in opening loss at Houston and barely was briefly relieved by McClendon twice. LA's secondary has plenty to clean up after allowing 4 touchdowns to P.J. Walker in a 37-17 loss at Houston. Here's how I see this game going. I don't think Josh Johnson's going to play for LA. If he did, I think it'd be a little closer, but Kenoff or McClendon is not the answer. They need Josh Johnson. That Luis Perez trade is looking worse and worse every day. Give me Landry Jones and the Dallas Renegades, and it's going to be a blowout. He's going to pick them apart like P.J. Walker did. I thought the LA was going to have a good team, a good defense. Obviously, that's not the case. Who is Winston Moss going to fire when they just get blown out by the Renegades? Like, I think the Renegades are going to blow them out of the water. You can't sit there and tell me. I mean, P.J. Walker is probably going to be the best quarterback in this league the way he looks, but Landry Jones right there it is. That's 1 and 2. He's going to pick them apart. It's not even going to be close. LA is going to get obliterated in their home field in front of no telling how many people. Probably not a whole lot. We don't know. This is probably going to be the smaller crowd of the week. This is the 3 o'clock game on Sunday on ABC. Give me Dallas all day long. Give me the best quarterback in this. And I expect McClendon to start, actually, because I think he's healthier. But McClendon does not know Landry Jones. I know I picked against Dallas last week, but that's because St. Louis defense is good and they didn't have Landry. Give me Landry and Dallas all day long. So, week 2 is here. Let me go over my picks again. I have in the game of the week, I have Houston defeating St. Louis. I have D.C. beating New York in a classic. I have Seattle beating Tampa in front of 30,000 people in their own stadium. And I have Dallas just whopping the Wildcats and that dumpster fire off the map. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back next week with a recap of week 2 and then another episode of picks and preview. Check me out on at XFL Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. Check me out on XFL Newsroom. Check out all of our lovely podcasts. You got Fantasy Central. You got Unhinged. You got each of the different team podcasts. It's an awesome place to go visit. Check out XFL Newsroom. Also, check me out on Love Sports Radio every weekend in the UK. I am doing a weekly interview now there. I am the XFL analyst for the American Sports Show, where he talks about all those stuff going on over here on the other side of the pond in sports. I am the last segment every week now, I guess. It's been an awesome whirlwind. And check me out in Houston. If you're going to be in Houston for the Seattle-Houston game, March the 7th, I do believe, come check me out. I'm going to do a live podcast live from the tailgate in Houston. Cannot wait to see my first XFL game, see Brandon Silvers against the man, the myth, the legend, P.J. Walker. Thank you for listening to this. If you have any questions you want me to answer on air, inbox me on Facebook or Twitter. Leave me a like and review. Be honest. Just leave me a like and review on Apple Podcasts or Google. Check me out anywhere podcasts can be heard. Have a good night and enjoy week 2 for the love of football.